from last year's team. She's in her second year of her rebuild in Monroe. We are thrilled to bring you basketball here on a Thursday night as Arkansas wins the tip and they go right to the three ball. And this is something we will see here, Christy. They will shoot early in the shot clock. You see the ULM starting five as they bring it up the court.
Well, and Eric, that's what Mike Neighbors wants from Arkansas. He wants them to shoot quick. They shoot best when they shoot under 10 seconds to go on the shot clock.
Bid inside by Kara Crockett, a senior for ULM. And here is Daniels on the push. Dungy will try again. And after going 0 for 6 last time out against Maryland on Sunday down in Florida, Chelsea Dungy a little cold from the start here for the Razorbacks.
Well, I'm not going to be surprised if Arkansas takes a little bit of time to get their legs out from under them. That was 3 games, 3 hard, difficult games in 3 days. So shots may fall short, but I do expect this offense to get going.
That one in and out. The bid from Kyron Whittington, freshman from Folsom, Louisiana, making her debut here today. Slocum on the drive, the kick, Ramirez wide open. Well, Arkansas is getting good looks. They're just not dropping in the first 2 minutes.
And ULM wants to play tough, aggressive defense, trying to run Arkansas off the three-point line. Arkansas's had the look so far, just haven't been able to knock them down.
Garrett
and then on offense for ULM, sorry, Eric, they are looking for a dribble drive, trying to open up a block and get the ball inside.
Thrown away early turnover for ULM. You see Garrett Beth Self, number 2, sophomore from New Albany, Mississippi, the Sun Belt Freshman of the Year a season ago, 10 points a game, 2 assists a game in 29 minutes a game. Top returning scorer for the Warhawks. Another bid for 3, just not dropping right now for the Razorbacks. Yeah, you mentioned 3 games in a row in Florida. It capped off a run of 4 games in 5 nights, and they were pretty run down, and they were run out of the gym by a good Maryland team. First points go to ULM.
Well, and that's what ULM's going to have to do. They're going to have to try to play a pace that slows Arkansas down, but when they get open looks, they have to knock them down, because once Arkansas gets going on offense, the confidence grows, the pace picks up, and puts so much pressure on the defense.
First 4 field goal attempts for the Razorbacks were 3-pointers, so Dungy takes it to the paint and gets fouled, and this is a big part of the Arkansas offense, getting to the free throw line. And nobody does it better or does it more than Chelsea Dungy.
Chelsea Dungy leads the country right now in free throw attempts as well as makes. She's getting 8 points a game just from the free throw line.
Shooting woes continue for the Razorbacks. Only points so far come from the freshman Whittington for ULM as they bring it up after a couple of missed free throws. Self. Whitney Goins, good shooter. Can't get the roll, and it's knocked out of bounds by the Warhawks, and it'll be Arkansas ball.
And Coach Williams spoke a lot about Goins, just how she's elevated her game because she's able to play within herself this year. She feels like there are more scores on the court for this ULM offense this year, which is making the returners so much more relaxed and play within themselves.
Dungy kicks it back out. Slocum will try a 3. Another one off the mark. 0 for 5 to start for Arkansas. Self on the drive. Whittington. Nice little move, just wouldn't drop. Now Arkansas in transition. Dungy all the way, gets hit hard. And we'll head back to the free throw line.
Where one thing about the early offense for ULM is the ball's either gone out of bounds and there's been stoppages, or they've been able to get back on defense. That time, Chelsea Dungy gets the rebound, takes it hard, and does what she does best. That's draw the foul and get to the free throw line.
Self picks up the personal, her firsts. Between field goals and free throws, Arkansas an 0 for 7 start, and finally comes to a close. Numbers for Chelsea Dungy so far this season, leading the team in scoring. That's good for number 1 in the country. And again, I know we'll put it all in context. Arkansas, compared to most other teams, has played a full season. We know how hard it's been for teams to get going. Teams like UConn haven't even played a game yet. They're not going to play till mid-December. So Arkansas feels very fortunate. But Mike Neighbor said the one stat that he really wants to lead the country in is number of games played this year. He's doing all he can to encourage the social distancing and following the protocols. And right now his blood pressure's seemingly a little elevated, which is something that he did not count on here in the early going against ULM, as Arkansas gets called for the foul.
Well, Eric, let's be frank. 2020 is just different. It looks different along the sidelines and the benches. It looks different on the floor for most players. And so Mike Neighbors, in my opinion, has it right. Do everything you can to get your players on the court, to have games. And there is no NCAA tournament without playing these games. So I appreciate everything he said to us in terms of how he's managing his team right now. He said, frankly, we're spending more time on what to do off the court than we are the X and O part of our game.
Dungy on the drive for two. So after the free throws by the senior Diamond
so
Brooks.
Difficult to defend. She can knock it down from deep. You've got to crowd her, and then she just take it off the bounce.
Through the hands of Brooks. Turnover, Slocum. For two.
Again, missed free throws by ULM allows Arkansas to get out in transition. Slocum that time knocks it down with a pull-up jumper.
Put Arkansas on top. Long three attempted. Pulled down by Taylor Thomas for Arkansas. Here's Daniels. Daniels will earn a trip to the free throw line. So after a cold start from outside the three-point line, Arkansas attacking the basket more here, earning trips to the free throw line, and Michaela Daniels, a sophomore out of Maryland, a chance to add to the early lead.
Well, Mike Neighbors will tell you, first thing he wants are layups. How do you get layups? Get out in transition.
Well, you touched on Michaela and her play here offensively in their early going this season. She had a great year last year as a freshman. Started every game, 9 points a game, but really just jumping up so far this year. Second on the team in scoring at 17 points a game, but she's more involved on the glass as well as Jalen Mason, the sixth player for Arkansas, will come into the game. So Daniels contributing in a different way with more points, but also on the glass as well.
Well, I think you just see how her role's been able to evolve because of her experience. I mean, Mike Neighbors always raved about her a year ago, kind of one of those unsung players on the court because she wasn't scoring a lot, but she was getting the ball to the people who could and needed to. This year, the staff has told her, we need you to put up shots. We need you to score, and she's taken that because he said she was probably the best scorer on the floor throughout the first 40 practices of the season.
Dungy accelerates down the lane for two.
If you're going to play Arkansas, you have to have a solid defensive transition plan. We asked Coach Williams about that. She said, we're going to send three back, but that's what's so hard when you're guarding Arkansas. When they get a full steam and they're allowed to go downhill, very difficult to defend.
Offensive foul called on Self. That will be her second personal foul. It's an 8-0 run right now, Christy, for the Razorbacks.
And this is a very inexperienced ULM ball club. They have 4 returning players that were able to suit up tonight. Combine that with 4 fifth-year seniors for Arkansas. So you just see the difference in experience. Coach Brooks said, I just want to see how we compete tonight.
Slocum finally makes a 3 for Arkansas after they missed their first 4 three-point attempts.
Eric, I'm eager to see Self get going for this offense. You mentioned it, former Sun Belt Rookie of the Year, and so far it's just been held in check. But the offense needs to try to go through her.
Well, she has 2 early fouls, so that may slow her down a little bit. She stays on the floor, gets the shot off, and the rebound comes to Jalen Mason. Extended run here. Dungy will try it, and now she's found the range. It started with taking it to the basket, getting to the free throw line after those early misses, but now she's in that rhythm, Christy, and she's got that confidence back to shoot it from the outside. 14 unanswered points for Arkansas.
Well, I'll say it again. If you're a defender against Chelsea Dungy, you have to be the epitome of dialed in and discipline. You can't go for the ball fakes. You've got to stay eyes on the stomach because she is so good at all three levels.
Slocum on the pull-up, and a timeout's going to be called here by ULM's head coach Brooks Williams. We were in a media window, but this is a run that is unstoppable right now for Arkansas. 16-0 run. Razorbacks by 14.
But imagine, a lot of shooting practices, a lot of individual work, but it's hard to get any kind of chemistry going when you don't have a full team on the court. Players come in, players get hurt. 4 players on this entire roster made it through the entire preseason without injury. And 2 of those got hurt Tuesday before they got on the bus yesterday.
Kara Brimsey, who's not playing, her ULM debut is on hold. She's a transfer from Tyler Junior College. She had an eye injury in practice this week. Brooks Williams told us it looked like she went into the ring with Mike Tyson, which would have been an outdated boxing reference were it not for the fact that Mike Tyson was in the ring within the past week against Roy Jones Jr. So out of the timeout, trying to turn the tide here in Fayetteville, but off the miss. Here's Slocum on the push again. Slocum, little hesitation on the drive, and they'll count it, and the foul.
With the hesitation, gets her defender's feet to go dead and just drives right to the rim.
So the fifth-year senior from Meridian, Ohio, is into double figures now with 10. Dungy has 9. Michaela Daniels will come back in. Grayson Williams comes in to take over the point. She's another one that was hurt in practice this week. She lost a tooth in practice. So ULM's been through the ringer just to get here to the season opener. Stolen, Erin Barnum on for Arkansas, and she will head to the free throw line. Correction, it's Davis, Marquisha Davis on the drive for the Razorbacks, who will shoot 2. So as the sophomore steps to the line, I can remind you that a Saturday college football tripleheader is coming up on the SEC Network and the ESPN app. Arkansas and Missouri kick things off at noon Eastern. Then Todd Fitch takes over at Vanderbilt, and they'll take on Georgia, 9th-ranked team of the country, in Athens. And then at 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central, South Carolina and Kentucky in our SEC Saturday night matchup. Hogs looking for their 4th win this season. Big rivalry game with the Tigers. The Battle Line Trophy on the line, 11 a.m. Central, coming up on Saturday.
Eric, you missed one of the biggest stories when you talked about the Vanderbilt-Georgia game.
I did not miss it. I'm just leaving it for you. This is
Fuller.
what a good
Sarah
assist
Fuller.
person looks like.
First of many assists this season, partner. Sarah Fuller, for any young girl out there, tune in to watch Vanderbilt football. I think the big question is, will she get a field goal attempt this game?
Well, she hit from 38 in practice the week leading up to her first game, going from keeper duties for Vandy soccer team to being on the roster for the football team. So we'll see. You'll see what happens coming up when they take on Georgia. Daniels on the rebound. 20 straight points scored by Arkansas. Rebound ripped down by Sassy McDowell.
Sorry, I was going to say, we're seeing a lot of freshmen on the floor now for ULM, and we're seeing just little mistakes, not stopping ball in transition, screen on the ball offense, passing to the person without seeing the defender. These are all teachable moments for these freshmen as they step on the court for the first time in their collegiate career.
There's one of those freshmen. Grayson Williams stops the run for Arkansas. She gets her first collegiate points in Fayetteville. Answered right back by Davis.
And we talked about Daniels and her improvement, but the same can be said about Davis's improvement. So much more aggressive from an offensive perspective this year for Arkansas.
Barnum. Davis on the baseline. Strong drive from the sophomore.
I mean, no rotation on defense that time by ULM. There's got to be talk on defense. And it's difficult right now for all of these players. You've got to create your own energy, your own talk because of COVID, because of the lack of communication from the stands, the energy, as well as from staffs with a mask on. It's difficult for them to sometimes instruct.
Williams gets called for the foul. Approaching a minute to go in the first quarter. Great spark from Davis off the bench. 6 quick points for Arkansas. Spinning inside and finishing is Barnum.
And Eric, we've talked about the guard play for Arkansas, but the one matchup area that I was concerned for ULM in this game was the post play between Thomas and Barnum. Very agile, athletic post players who can take you off the bounce versus these ULM post players.
Sadie Williams kicks it to the shooter, Van Schaik, who did not have a great year shooting the basketball last year, 23%, but Brooks Williams said she has not missed in preseason, so stepping into game action and knocking down the three. Another strong drive from Barnum. Well, it was a very slow start for Arkansas. They missed their first 5 field goals, but then they made their next 6 field goals. Hit the gas, went on a 20-0 run, and they are up 31-9 at the end of one in Fayetteville.
Secondly, he wants free throws, and then he wants three-pointers. You see what they've done on the season. And, Eric, that averages out to 75 points a game, which is more than most teams score in a game, period. But that's not counting any of the twos minus the layups. But so far in this game, 10 points off layups, 6 points from the free throw line, 9 points from the three-point line. I got to say, I think after the slow start, Mike Neighbors is probably happy with the offense.
Well, let's see. They were 0 for 5 to start, and they finished 11 of 17 from the field at 64.7%. So it was a pretty strong finish after that ice-cold start for Arkansas. Let's see what ULM can do taking on an SEC team on the road to open their season. And that is one thing to point out, and you touched on it before. I mean, this is game number 1 for the Warhawks, going up against a team that is playing their 5th game, which is a big advantage for Arkansas, but on the road against an SEC team, add that to the mix, and it's a tall task for ULM.
Well, this wasn't originally scheduled to be ULM's first game of the season, but yet again, COVID wreaks havoc on everything, and so this was just, unfortunately, the way it broke for ULM to have to start the season. But at the end of the day, Eric, ULM will grow from this. I always said as a coach, the improvement from a team from game 1 to game 2 is the most you'll see all season long, and so especially for these young players for ULM, they're going to be able to get back, watch film, and use this as a learning experience.
Now, when you were coaching at Emory, you would put on your schedule, like most coaches at smaller schools would do, games against much tougher teams in the early part of the schedule. You didn't want every game on your schedule to be that way, but what benefits did you try to pull out of those games when you play teams that you knew you weren't going to win against, but you at least wanted to be in the fight against?
Well, it gives you film against someone else, which is so teachable for every team. And Eric, it also just gives you a chance to compete. I can't say this enough about ULM. The lack of having players in practice consistently just creates havoc for a staff, for a team, to develop any kind of chemistry, to put in a system. ULM had one scrimmage, and that was back on October 23rd against their practice players and staff in order to get this going with officials. That's the only live action that they've truly had before they face the 16th ranked team in the country.
And Christy, to that point, that sequence that we just shot offensively for ULM, that's exactly what you're looking for. Shot clock's winding down. You run your offense. You get a shot. Sassy McDowell, a freshman, scores. You could hear the bench on the other end just thrilled about it because that's what they were looking for, and they got it. You find those tiny victories and those teachable moments, as we just saw Brooks Williams talking to her team. So on the other end, Aaron Barnum comes right back, gets an and one, but can't finish off the three-point play.
Well, to this point, I've been impressed with ULM's offensive execution. They've been patient. They've worked it down. The spacing's been pretty good, especially for first game of the season. They've just turned it over 5 times. Here a 6th time, which allows Arkansas to get out and transition and run.
Ramirez, the pull-up 3 on the way is good. Amber Ramirez gets her first points of the game, averaging 10 points a game so far this season. And it's a 25-point lead for the Razorbacks. Arkansas missed their first 5 field goal attempts, but finished the first quarter going 11 of 12 from the floor. 2 more for ULM. Sadie Williams gets her first points. Barnum.
And that's a
with
cardinal
8 off the
sin.
bench.
Sorry, Eric, that's a cardinal sin. You scored, and yet you weren't able to get back in transition defense. And Arkansas just is so prolific in transition to score so quickly.
Williams.
Eric, ULM working the shot clock is advantageous for a couple of reasons. One, it minimizes the number of possessions for Arkansas. It also allows ULM to get in rebounding position and try to get higher percentage shots.
Entry to Diamond Brooks. She was fouled, and the senior from Kentwood, Louisiana, will go to the line to shoot a couple. Well, good contributions off the bench for Arkansas. Barnum
I was
and
going to say,
Davis.
Coach Williams said about Brooks Williams.
You and I are not in midseason form yet.
Brooks.
This is our opening day for us right here. Let's get it all out of our system right now.
I'm just going to blame the pandemic. How's that? But what I was going to say
so
about Diamond Brooks is Coach Williams said she had improved so much from the beginning of Sunbelt play to the end, was in such better shape, and then COVID hit, and it really took her out. And then this is a young lady that's battled a couple of knee issues throughout the preseason. So for her, it's just getting back in game conditioning and getting her timing back.
Dungy step back 3. Say those early game misses are a distant memory for Chelsea Dungy and this Arkansas team, averaging 94 points a game. Mike Neighbors says they're faster than last year's team. He thinks they're, 10 to 15 points better than last year's team? Last year they averaged 83 points a game when it was all said and done. They will turn you over, they take care of the basketball, and they will get it up quickly as Ramirez will head to the free throw line.
Eric, when you talk about Dungy, she's averaging even more points than a year ago. It's not like every team is not focused on her, but it's how she scores. She gets that trail 3. She has the change of speed. She has the step back to create space. And then off the bounce, she loves that crossover to get you off balance. And then we've said it so many times, can draw the foul and get to the free throw line.
Well, we were wondering how Mike Neighbors is going to keep everybody happy with so many options on offense. And he counterpunched with, my fear is that they're too unselfish, that they're looking to make maybe one pass too many. And sometimes that happens with team. They don't want to be that player that's like, well, I got my 15 shots. You got it. It's in the flow of the offense. Take it. Don't pass it up.
Well, I think Slocum's a good example of that coming in. I think she's still trying to get in the flow of, not wanting to shoot too much. That's what Mike Neighbors said. I've got some kids who are so worried about that. But I think that's where you see the experience of Dungy, having been in this system with him now for 3 years, is that she knows when to shoot, and she's taking advantage of that.
Kyron Whittington scores, and then coming back quickly is Slocum for 2 more. Back and forth we go. ULM with a quick answer.
Well, I thought that was a weakness of Arkansas this past weekend in both the Florida Gulf Coast game as well as the Maryland game, was their transition defense. So I love the fact that Garabeth Self just got the ball out and went quick to score.
So after the block by Morgan Hill for ULM, the Warhawks can't score on the other end. Dungy takes the contact. She'll go to the line to shoot 2. Foul was on Kira Crockett for ULM. And now another foul called on the Warhawks.
Again, Dungy, if you don't get your hips and shoulders between her and the basket, she's just going to go by you. And honestly, right now, I think ULM's got to make a decision. You've got to get the help side there before the lane line, or you've got to just let her finish because, again, they're just piling up fouls right now which, again, it's not going to help them at all because Arkansas is so good at knocking it down from the free throw line.
Foul was on Hill for ULM. That's her first personal. Dungy. Now 3 for 6 from the free throw line. She's leading the way for the Razorbacks with 13. Slocum has 12. Barnum off the bench with 8. Davis off the bench with 6. Self. Self on the turnaround comes up short. Thomas comes away. Ramirez with the kick. Mason with the 3.
Eric, we talk a lot about the starters for Arkansas, but the bench is where I see, especially with Mason back off the injury, the bench play and scoring production has just been elevated to this early point in the season.
Jalen Mason, the redshirt senior, did not play last year because of a foot injury. She had started 96 games in her first 3 years playing for Arkansas, and a timeout is called.
To the rim.
Arkansas once again doing a good job taking care of the basketball. Just 1 turnover. That's something they always do very well. Averaged 11 a game last year. That's what they're averaging this year. As you take a look inside Bud Walton Arena, they're keeping capacity at about 4,000. Everybody's socially distanced, cheerleaders as well. As we've seen across the country, they probably will have a pretty good crowd coming up for their next game. That'll be against Baylor on Sunday in the SEC Big 12 Challenge.
Heck, Eric, if I was in Arkansas, I'd be going to that game.
You've got a game on your schedule that you are looking forward to. We'll talk about that as we progress here. Whittington will earn a trip to the free throw line. I mean, you see the cardboard cutouts there at Bud Walton Arena, 25% capacity. The masks are all around, and the benches, as we've seen, are spaced for the social distancing. And then when Arkansas gets on the court for a timeout, they're spaced for their conversation during a timeout. And really, you talked about it before, some of the things that Mike Neighbors is doing, they're not having a game day shoot around, which is something that all teams have done, but he's like, we're just trying to minimize the times when kids are together. We'll get our stuff done via video conferencing or at practice the day before. They're not traveling in, at least for now, the day before a game. They're going in day of game, going to the arena, playing the game, and then flying home or busing home, depending on where the game is after that. So really committed to keeping things as safe as possible.
Well, he has taken that 15 minutes in terms of being near someone, and he's taken it hard. He said they learned from watching film of this past weekend in huddles at the free throw line. He says he wants his kids not getting up there for the first free throw, waiting back, and then rushing up when it's time for that second free throw. He also said that at the end of games, if it's not close, he's sending kids to the locker room to minimize them being in there together. A lot of thought by this Arkansas staff in terms of minimizing the risk to their student athletes.
Neighbors now in his 4th year as Arkansas head coach, 62 wins, 160 in his career when you combine his time at Washington. 62 and 42. They were going to head to the NCAA tournament last year for the first time since 2015, but we all know how that turned out for everybody in March. 24 wins a season ago, lost in the semifinals of the SEC tournament to South Carolina, year after winning 22 games. Senior Taylor Thomas at the free throw line. Aaron Barnum will come back in as Thomas knocks down the free throw. Self will walk it up for ULM.
Eric, Garabeth Self's a great story. Started the season a little slow and then practically doubled her scoring average in Sun Belt play, which is usually not the norm, especially for a freshman. But she picked it up, got comfortable, and really excelled in this system. And they're expecting a lot more from her this year.
Riley Langerman has come on for Arkansas, number 11. Freshman on this team that is just filled with upperclassmen. 4 fifth-year seniors on the roster, 3 fourth-year seniors. And here you see Riley, freshman from Del City, Oklahoma, playing in her 4th game for the Razorbacks. I think this is one year where leadership and maturity will come in very handy in a season unlike any other.
Well, and Mike Neighbors said, our players are coaching themselves. And I can honestly say from experience, when players are managing one another and coaches, well, in this case, have to focus on COVID, but can focus on the X's and O's, that's going to be a very successful team. Dawn Staley said it all last year about her team. They managed themselves, took care of business off the court. She just got to focus on X's and O's.
Well, Davis on the drive was fouled, and ULM is over the limit, so 2 free throws coming up for Arkansas with 2:41 to go before halftime. Marquisha had a career best 15 points in that game against Maryland last time out for Arkansas. The wins for Arkansas this year: Oral Roberts, Wake Forest, Florida Gulf Coast. They were down 9 in the 4th quarter against Florida Gulf Coast. Langerman, good fight to knock it out of bounds off of ULM, and it'll be Arkansas ball. But they just could not keep up with Maryland in their last game. Terps put 115 points on the board. 41 of those 115 came in the 3rd quarter to hand Arkansas their first loss of the season.
Well, some of that was fatigue, but Eric, the stat that really stuck out to me was the negative 20 in rebounding margin for Arkansas in that game. And Maryland scored 27 points off those second chance opportunities. So something tells me they may have done some rebounding drills the last couple of days as well.
Barnum with the hoop. The good feed from Jalen Mason. Answered back by Self.
Self is just steady. Doesn't force things. Can beat you off the bounce. Has a nice little floater. And as we saw there, came off the on ball and knocked it down.
Self took over the point guard spot just before the start of conference play last year for ULM. That one won't drop in, but on the offensive glass, put back attempt by McDowell off the mark, and Arkansas on the run again. Davis not shy to attack.
And this is my point about Garabeth Self. Just steady, not trying to force issues, getting her teammates in the spots they need to be in order to execute the offense.
Goins took a tumble. Tough drive and a trip to the free throw line coming for the freshman Whittington. So she will step to the free throw line. As she does that, we remind you that Saturday night SEC football final hosted by Dari Noka with Gene Chiswick, Chris Doring, Roman Harper. They'll take you through the biggest stories from the day and break down all the games. 10:30 Eastern, 9:30 Central after South Carolina, Kentucky here on the SEC Network and the ESPN app. A good debut for freshman Kyron Whittington. Battled through a back injury in the summer into early fall. First full practice wasn't until Thanksgiving week. Earned a spot in the starting lineup. And she has played well here for ULM, pacing them with 8 points.
Well, to quote her coach, she said she's a fun young player. She's the one to watch. Has potential to be very special.
Well, Daniels will go to the free throw line to shoot a couple. Sadie Williams back into the game for ULM.
Eric, one thing I'm seeing from ULM on defense, and I will attribute this to the lack of players in practice. It's just the pace of play right now. You can see they're almost a step slow, whether it's rotations or closing out. And to me, that's just practice reps at going full speed against one another, which I'm sure will only get better after tonight's game and getting players back in practice.
Goins for three.
Goins coming off a season in which she made 45 threes, leading the team in three-point attempts as well as makes.
Four-year starter for this ULM team with the start here tonight after being a fixture the past 3 years. Knocks down the three-pointer, her first points of the game. And on the other end, a foul called on Grayson Williams will send Daniels back to the free throw line. Final minute, first half. Arkansas led 31-9 at the end of the first quarter. ULM's put 20 on the board here in this quarter, and they add to it. Sadie Williams with the deuce.
And if you're a ULM fan, you've got to be very optimistic about what you're seeing. Freshmen stepping on the court tonight and contributing in a big way.
Two more free throws coming up for Arkansas. It'll be Barnum going to the line this time.
And Eric, I don't even know if this is possible, but if I'm Brooks Williams at halftime, I'm trying to get my team to understand transition defense. This is an Arkansas offense that is so much more prolific within the first 10 seconds of the shot clock, whereas they're shooting 50%. The lower you can make them go in the shot clock, the worse they were shooting coming into tonight, all the way down to 25 seconds. So far today, you're seeing Arkansas just get the ball out, make her miss, and drive it right down into the rim.
1 of 2 for Barnum. Goins for Williams. Ripped down, and here's Daniels. Down to 2, down to 1. Daniels has it knocked out of her hands, and that will do it for the first half. 59 points put on the board by this prolific Arkansas offense. Halftime in Fayetteville, Arkansas in control. Halftime continuing.
Saw action in that first half, and you see the point production, 16. Great future for ULM.
That seventh freshman is Quay Chambers. She suffered a season-ending knee injury in the preseason. The freshman from Benton High School won a state title there as a senior, averaged 20 points a game. So that freshman class just a little bit smaller. But, you know, this is what happens when you're in a rebuild. The early signing period, 5 players in that group for Brooks Williams. Getting it started in this 2021 season on the road in Fayetteville. Ramirez comes right out and knocks down a three-pointer. 8 points now for Amber Ramirez, and Arkansas has doubled up ULM.
Well, you can talk about Slocum, you can talk about Dungy, you can talk about Daniels, and there's Amber Ramirez against Wake Forest. Eric, she went 22 straight points without a miss. It took her until the 8-minute mark to go in the game before she missed. This young lady who all last year we saw her knock them down from deep, able to get hot quickly, she's still doing the same for Arkansas this season.
Slocum on the drive. (64-31) Arkansas. Dropped inside and a good finish for ULM. That's Kira Crockett. Dungy can't answer right back, and the rebound for Self. Goins. Dungy all alone for two. Chelsea Dungy now with 15.
Arkansas's. Take it, partner.
No, that's my fault. You had started, and I jumped all over you.
If you're going to try to slow Arkansas down, is you've got to take care of the ball. And so far, ULM with 9 turnovers, and Arkansas has been able to convert that into 17 easy points.
Arkansas with just the 1 turnover in the first half. Tipped in the hands of Slocum. Nifty little dribble to get free. The kick to Daniels for 3. Lost out of bounds. And it'll be ULM basketball. Grayson Williams will come back in for ULM. And she'll run the point for the Warhawks. Self. Van Schaik.
I mean, give Arkansas some credit. Right now you're seeing this on-ball screen on the wing by ULM, but they just cannot turn the corner to get deep enough to create their shot or turn the corner to get to the rim.
Shot clock expiring. The heave from a couple of steps inside a half court goes down for Linda Van Schaik. Well, Brooks Williams said she was making everything. Yes, she's making everything. Daniels with a quick answer for Arkansas. Self looking for the screen from Crockett.
And UNLV just cannot turn the corner off that on-ball screen in order to get the offense going.
Thomas with the rebound. Slocum in transition. Ramirez corner 3. She knew it once it left her hand. Amber Ramirez heating up into double figures now with 11.
Well, and this is what happens because Arkansas can get to the rim off the bounce. Shooters can spot up and knock them down.
Arkansas has outscored ULM 13-5 to start the third quarter.
Coach Williams was so excited to do this for Maddie and her family. And Eric, a team is a family. And so when one of your true family members loses someone, it affects them. And Brooks was very honest with me. The injuries have been hard for us, but obviously the death of a loved one definitely rocked this team. And our best goes out to the Gott family.
Out of the timeout called by ULM, they get the offensive rebound and a second chance opportunity here for the Warhawks out of the Sun Belt. Shot clock down to 2. Van Schaik tries to beat the clock again. Rebound by Destiny Oberg into the game. Destiny Slocum with a beautiful drive for 2.
You say drive, I say beautiful move, because that was a heck of a crossover to get by the defender and get to the rim.
Well, that's something we saw from the very start of her collegiate career, playing for Maryland and then for 2 years at Oregon State, and now for her senior year at Arkansas.
Well, Mike Neighbors said that Slocum's not a volume kid, meaning putting up a lot of shots. She's just always been efficient. And I think with this fast pace, this is where, again, he's looking for Slocum to take those open shots, for her not to be quite so unselfish.
Well, you see what she did at Oregon State, led the team in scoring and assists. At Maryland, the National Freshman of the Year. But her connection with Mike Neighbors goes way back to when he was recruiting her. He was the head coach at Washington. So you wonder, well, how does Destiny Slocum end up at Arkansas? Well, she had that connection with Mike Neighbors and vice versa. And even though she turned him down and went to Maryland and then to Oregon State, he always left the door open for her, and she took that opportunity to finish out her career at Arkansas.
Well, originally verbaled to Mike Neighbors at Washington. And then, changed her mind, and Coach Neighbors was very gracious about it, and I think that's something that always said a lot to Destiny about Mike Neighbors. And when we asked her, why Arkansas, and she said, because I want to play for Mike Neighbors.
Slocum for 3. Rebound for Brooks. What did Mike say? He went to Russia to watch her play during the original recruiting process, and he had gone to Idaho to see her play, and
well, he said it was
had
very
a lot
difficult.
invested. Well, he had a lot invested. It just took more years than he thought for that recruiting to pay off, and it finally did to get her to Fayetteville. The whistle will stop things with 4 minutes to go. We'll take the timeout with Arkansas in control, 70.
Which unfortunately for ULM has been a struggle tonight.
Van Schaik at the free throw line. Avery Hughes has come in for Arkansas for the first time, as Arkansas gets a little bit deeper into their bench. Well, that was the question when we talked to Mike this week. We joked around, well, do you want to talk about your offense or your defense first? Because they had just come off a game where they scored 96, but the catch was against Maryland. They gave up 115. So I think that's going to be the big question this year with this Arkansas team. They have the firepower. They can outscore you. But when they need it, Christy, as we get into the storm of SEC play, are they going to be able to be strong enough defensively to be one of the top teams in the conference? I know you're very bullish on Arkansas. You think very highly of them. You think they are a team that can compete with the South Carolinas and the Kentuckys of this conference.
Well, if they make shots, absolutely, because I think it puts pressure on opponents to have to score. Now, the difference is a South Carolina, we'll take for last year, could score with them and defend them and minimize Arkansas's offensive chances. Mike Neighbors says against the Baylors, the UConns, the South Carolinas of the world, our offense gives us a chance. If we can catch them on a B night, we can get a W. The difference will be the low post play. With Baylor coming to town this weekend, can they defend the post play of Baylor? And can Baylor get up and defend and run Arkansas off the three-point line? I think that's the game within the game come this weekend. But Mike Neighbors did say this, and I love this. I want to say this. He said, defense is science. Offense is art. Well, Arkansas's got some beautiful art. They got to get back in the lab, so to speak, right now and work on the defense.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Oh, great hustle by Kiera Crockett on both ends of the floor, and then her temperature got raised up a little bit as she got tangled up. She'll check out of the game. You take a look at the SEC Big 12 Challenge. You mentioned Baylor. That's one of the big matchups coming up, as the 4th-ranked Bears will be in Fayetteville. Baylor getting D.D. Richards back to the lineup on Tuesday. She had 7 assists in her season debut a little over a month after that serious injury in practice, as Baylor beat USF 67-62. But South Carolina, Iowa State, top 25 matchup. A&M and Texas, top 25 matchup. West Virginia, Mike Carey's team is always good taking on Tennessee. And then Kentucky and Ryan Howard, arguably the best player in the country on the road at Kansas State. So some great matchups in the SEC Big 12 Challenge.
Well, I'm eager to see the South Carolina-Iowa State game. Can South Carolina slow down Ashley Jones, who's averaging 31 points a game right now? Prolific scorer. Can she get enough help around her to slow down the Gamecocks?
So the foul called against South Carolina. So again, the matchups coming up over these next few days. The Kentucky-Kansas State one is, that one's right now, right? I'm getting my time zones all messed up. Yeah, but that's on my schedule for right now. Kentucky's 2-0. Ryan Howard making her season debut, taking on Kansas State.
Well, Eric, the Texas A&M game, one of the greatest rivalries in all of sports.
Oh, sure.
Vic Schaefer's homecoming after serving 8 years on staff as associate head coach to Gary Blair. Rebound
for ULM as they push it back the other way. So Arkansas, after putting 31 on the board in the first quarter, shot 65% in that quarter. They were up by 28 at halftime. Their largest lead is where we stand right now at 37. After holding ULM to 8 points here in this quarter. Inside of 2 minutes to go in the quarter. I want to get your big picture thoughts when we get into the fourth quarter now that we're into this season. about the SEC and how you think it's going to play out. I mean, obviously, South Carolina is the top team in the country and a team that's going to be tough to beat. But we'll take a little bit of a dive. Why not? Because the season's here. Happy New Year, Kirsty.
As nice little teaser there, partner. Everybody come back to the fourth quarter.
As we get into play here for this 2020-2021 season. Whistle and a foul on Arkansas. Davis picks up her second.
Eric, I went back and watched a little bit of ULM game from a year ago, and Linda Van Schaik looks like a different player than what I saw a year ago. The confidence that she's playing with is very noticeable to me. And then the other young player that's made an impression on me tonight is Grayson Williams. She's been steady at the point. Unfortunately, turned it over a moment ago, but has been able to take care of the ball and get her team in an offense. Bodes well for this team as they enter Sun Belt play.
And Sadie Williams, a freshman on the drive right there. She has 6 points on 3 of 5 shooting. Yeah, ULM will get into Sun Belt play on January 1st and 2nd. They'll be at Arkansas State. The way they're setting it up in the Sun Belt, they're playing 4 divisional opponents 4 times each, mostly back-to-backs at the same venue Friday night, and then they'll play Saturday afternoon again. You're going to see so many different things this year just to minimize travel, to try to get the most games possible played. And that's another thing that we've seen. Like UConn made a game with UMass Lowell here today to finally get their season opener because their program was put on pause. You can see what's coming up for Arkansas as they've got Baylor and SMU on their schedule coming up. And so far, so good for Arkansas. They've played what's on their schedule, but they've got contingency plans in case somebody has a COVID cancellation that maybe they can slide another game in there. So being nimble, being flexible has been the key so far, and it's going to continue to be the key for these teams across the country.
And for these coaches to be on social media and to have their group chats on their phones. Yeah. I mean, it's remarkable how quickly coaches are scheduling games right now because they just want to give their athletes an opportunity to compete.
Well, I'm going to assume the UConn game came together because Tommy Garrick is the UMass Lowell head coach. He's married to Shay Ralph, who is the UConn assistant to Gino Oriema, and they're like, wait, we're coming out of COVID. We need a game. How can we get a game that's a bus ride away, probably about 2 hours or so, but you make it happen. You find a way to get it done this year, even if you are UConn and some of these programs across the country just needing to get games.
Well, and you're seeing, even if you looked at Arkansas' schedule, much more local in nature for most of these non-conference games, trying to minimize time away, time in hotels. A lot of out-and-back trips for Arkansas coming up, whether it's by plane or by bus.
Van Schaik and Whittington sharing the team lead for ULM with 8 apiece. Ober, a good feed to Mason for 2. We saw Mason with the assist in the first half. Oberg off the bench with the dish to Mason here in the second half. And that will do it for the third quarter. So 11 points scored by ULM in the quarter as Arkansas tried to dial up the defense. You know they have no trouble on the offense. Following our game in Fayetteville, coming up next on the SEC Network, Ole Miss will take on Kansas in the SEC Big 12 Challenge. Ole Miss won their opener over McNeese State. Freshman Snudda Collins with 23, earning SEC Freshman of the Week honors. Fourth quarter underway in Fayetteville. The feed inside to Destiny McGee, just because you can't get enough Destinies if you're Arkansas. The third one is in the game. The freshman from Huntsville, Alabama. Slocum out defensively on the freshman Williams. Van Schaik. Shot clock winding down again. Van Schaik will try the deep 3. And the rebound for McGee. Barnum thought about it from the outside, instead drove the lane. She had 11 in the first half. Those are her first points of the second half.
Well, that's just a tough matchup for Diamond Brooks on her, and you saw her bring her out and then just drive by her to get to the rim for the easy 2.
Williams. Rebounded by Barnum. And a foul called on Crockett for ULM. Well, we showed you some of the teams playing here tonight. Can anybody in the SEC beat South Carolina? And NC State's on top by 1. Maybe my timing, Christy, is not the best on that question, but with Destiny Henderson stepping right in and seemingly filling the Ty Harris void, Kiki Herbert-Harrigan, good feed. And Destiny McGee scores, gets her first field goal as a member of Arkansas. Kiki's gone for South Carolina, but they just reload, and they've got a team that is so good. But when you look at Ryan Howard and you look at this Arkansas team that, as you mentioned, if they're making shots, they're going to be a tough team to beat. A&M looks to be a team that, even though they've lost Kennedy Carter, they've got some pretty strong pieces, and you know that they can get it done on the glass. So as you handicap the race in the SEC, what are some of the things that jump out to you about the conference this year?
Well, I'm going to speak overview first. Because of COVID, you've got to have depth. You got to have some luck too, but you got to have some depth because you never know with contract tracing or whatnot who's going to come out, who might be a tier 1, whatnot. But here's the bottom line. I think experience, as you noted earlier, will come to play because these are such unusual times. And that's why I thought I gave Arkansas a huge nod in the preseason. And because, and you saw this in SEC football. Carolyn Peck said it on every call we had in the preseason. You saw it in SEC football. The defense seems to be behind. Well, we're seeing that in basketball as well. And I think a lot of that is early on, coaches didn't have players in groups together. They had like small groups to minimize their time around one another. And so I think offensive skills have improved by players. Therefore, the offense as a whole has got better. The chemistry is better on offense. As Slocum shows some of those offensive skills to score. And I think defense has been lacking because coaches chose safety, maybe didn't get together and do some of those things. And so I think that bodes well for Arkansas because this is an offensive-minded system and program. Now, where Arkansas struggles is against athletic teams like South Carolina who can get up and run them off the three-point line and who have low post players to protect the rim. But what I will say, can anyone beat South Carolina? Absolutely. That's why we play the game. However, I will say, if the bench of South Carolina continues to perform like they have, I think we could see another run by South Carolina through the SEC play.
Well, and too, South Carolina's motivated. They were the team last year that looked to be the number 1 choice to win the national championship, and that was taken away from them. It was denied. So I think they're on a mission there. At least it won't take Dawn Staley too much to get her team up to be motivated to win a national title that they did not have a chance to play for last year. And that's going to be a traveling violation called on ULM.
Well, Eric, as soon as we get off, I'm going to obviously switch over to South Carolina. But what I'm interested in seeing, and you can only really see this in practice sometimes or on the sidelines, is who's the dog for South Carolina. We knew Ty Harris was the leader, and Kiki was kind of just that person who got that team fired up and ready to play. Who's going to be that this year for South Carolina? We know what a great home court South Carolina has with limited fans this year. Who's the player or players on that team that gets the fire, gets the emotions up, and has the team dialed in and ready to compete minute for minute each night?
That one won't drop for Davis, but Destiny McGee continues to fill up the stat sheets, and she's come in here in the fourth quarter. 6 quick points for the freshman.
And Mike Neighbors is high on McGee. He says great hands, can finish down low, and he says if I can put 4 shooters around her, it's going to put so much pressure on a defense because can you help or not?
McGee's got a rebound. And a foul called on the drive by Barnum, who has a chance to match and then surpass her career high. Saturday morning, we get you ready for college football. SEC Nation with Laura, Roman, Tim, and Jordan. Live reports, game breakdowns, and much more. And you can be a part of the show as well. SEC Nation, presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors, 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 Central on the SEC Network and the ESPN app. So Erin has matched her career and season high. Good bounce back for her after being held to 4 points against Maryland. She averaged 5 points a game last year. New career high for the sophomore from Little Rock, 15 points. Those could turn out to be very key players for Arkansas this season as well, Christy. You know Dungy's going to get points. You know Slocum's going to get points. You know Ramirez is going to knock down threes. Michaela Daniels is a go-to scorer, but you get 10 points a game from Erin Barnum, which is what Arkansas is getting right now. I know we're 5 games into the season, but you get points from Marquisha Davis like you have tonight off the bench, 7 points. Those are going to be huge contributors for this Arkansas team.
Well, I asked Mike Neighbors yesterday because he always has a shot distribution for his players that he wants. And we talked about Dungy, we talked about Daniels, we talked about Ramirez, we talked about Slocum. But he said, hey, just as importantly is for Davis, Barnum, and Thomas to get their 15 actions. So that could be points, a field goal, that could be a free throw, whatnot. And that's why I think the improvement that I've seen, yes, Slocum is special and is going to make this offense even better, but it's the improvement that I've seen in Thomas and Barnum and Davis that I think makes this team really dangerous.
Well, Barnum made a nifty play there, got the steal, turned around and scored, and here she comes across half court for Arkansas. Hughes. Inside of 5 minutes to go here in the fourth quarter with Arkansas on top by 50. Williams. And that's going to be deflected into the backcourt. And now get us a stoppage of play with 4:28 to go in the fourth quarter. Razorbacks closing in on win number 4 this season.
Well, again, first in free throw made, first in free throw attempts, 3-point field goals. We've said it. They want to get layups. If they can't get the layups, and that's where the steals come into play, they just play solid defense, not going for a lot of steals, but wait for you to make that mistake, and then we'll pounce. And they convert that into easy points, and teams are fouling them. And a lot of that is Chelsea Dungy, who has a great knack of getting to the free throw line.
Macy Weaver has come on for Arkansas. So everyone who dressed tonight for the Razorbacks has gotten into this game. A little more than 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. There you see Macy, the senior from Illinois, making her 3rd appearance this year. Davis on the run for 2.
She is so explosive off the bounce, and when you put shooters on the court around her, it just opens up driving lanes that she was able to create there and get to the rim.
Trying to get it into Hannah Edwards, and Weaver gets called for the foul.
Hannah Edwards is another one of those freshmen for ULM. Has had a lot of injuries throughout the preseason. A big post presence at 6'6" for ULM, so hopefully she can get healthy and add that to this offense.
Goins for 2. 5 now for senior Whitney Goins. Davis with the finish and the foul.
I don't know if I said this, but she's pretty explosive off the bounce.
I think you could say
there,
it again
they
if
get
you
the ball
want.
out quick and transition to her, and she just one dribble and gets to the rim and gets a little kiss off the glass.
$12 points for the sophomore, following up her career high 15 against Maryland last time out.
Eric, you brought up the Sun Belt scheduling, and it's something as we were all hoping and praying for a basketball season. It was interesting to watch all the different conferences around the country and how they approach scheduling. I like the Sun Belt, and they're not the only one who did this, but kind of narrowed down their conference into smaller pieces to minimize the travel. And so, unfortunately, some of these teams may not play some of their traditional rivals or whatnot in conferences. but they're trying to provide these student athletes with the opportunity to play. And so in ULM's case, they're going to play Arkansas State 4 times this season, twice at home, twice away. But hey, it's basketball, and it gives these young athletes a chance to compete.
Davis with the steal and score after Langerman knocked down the three-pointer for Arkansas. And then all 12 teams will play in the Sun Belt Conference Tournament, as they'll get a stoppage to make substitutions here for ULM. Troy, the defending champions, picked by the coaches to repeat this year, they put up the points, 80 points a game, so you know Troy can score. So ULM getting the SEC equivalent of Troy, I think, here in their season opener. Team that can really score in bunches.
And you've got UT Arlington with a new coach. And, I mean, again, just a steady program. And so this is one of those unsung conferences, in my opinion. Just really great coaches from top to bottom. And you're seeing here tonight, even with Brooks Donald-Williams, a young program who's trying to grow, but we've seen a lot of young players, so to speak, get thrown to the fire against a very good Arkansas team tonight.
Langerman is fouled, so she will head to the free throw line. Well, next up for Arkansas, Baylor on Sunday. That should be a great matchup. We mentioned D.D. Richards back for Baylor.
Eric, what do you think the points are going to be in that game?
Say it again, Christy.
What do you think, like the points? How high scoring how many points do you think Arkansas needs to get to upset Baylor?
Ooh, I don't know. Let's set an over/under on that right now. I think. Well, there's two different things right here. How many do I think they need to get, and how many do I realistically think a team could score against Baylor are probably two different things, because we all know what Baylor can do and how they get up for those big games like the one they'll be played Sunday in Fayetteville.
Well, and I think it was a great win for Baylor at South Florida on Tuesday. Really good South Florida team. And I think it bodes well for Baylor to take their team on the road, have to compete there, and then come here into Fayetteville and try to beat Arkansas on their home floor.
Well, to give you an idea on the contrast here, Baylor won that game on the road 67-62. So both teams were in the 60s in that game. So whose style will win out? Will it be the team that could get some stops on defense like Baylor, or will Arkansas get what they want at Bud Walton on Sunday? We shall see. That's a 3 for Whitney Goins. SEC opener for Arkansas will be New Year's Eve. They'll be at Kentucky. Now, this is a loaded Arkansas team. Obviously, they got great contributions last year from Alexis Tolfree, who averaged 17 points a game, an elite shooter for Arkansas. Good bench spark. Rukia Dumbia transferred out, but you bring in Destiny Slocum. You get Chelsea Dungy and Amber Ramirez to team up. You get Michaela Daniels and Marquisha Davis taking the next step. This will be a fun team to watch all season long in the SEC. And for ULM, they're a team that is on the rebuild. In second year, head coach Brooks Williams has some freshmen who have not backed down, and a couple of seniors who want to go out on a high note, including Whitney Goins, the senior who knocks down another 3.
I got to say, Whitney Goins is getting it going right now here in the fourth quarter. But, Eric, to your point, I asked Brooks Williams this week, tell me about your team. She goes, we're getting better every day. And that's what you need from a young team. And so I think where ULM is right now and where they're going to be come January, two totally different teams.
And where is Arkansas? They're above the century mark. They put 103 on the board in a